Hello and welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer, endurance enthusiast, or simply have an interest in sport, you have come to the right place for inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and as always, plenty of entertainment. It's been a whirlwind of announcing adventures since the last episode of the podcast, from Ironman 70.3 Belgium in Knock-a-Haze to the Men's Ironman World Championship in Nice, France, to the 13th edition of Ironman Wales on Sunday in Tenby. It's been hectic but great fun. I got home to Galway late yesterday evening after 3 weeks on the road, and I can tell you I was very happy to sleep in my own bed last night. The Ironman UK season ended on Sunday with another brilliant day of racing in Tenby at Ironman Wales. I missed this race last year as I was in Nice, so I was very glad to be back on North Beach on Sunday morning to set the athletes off into the water as they embarked on their task to conquer the dragon. And boy oh boy, what a race day it was. Ironman Wales is without a doubt one of my favourite races on the Ironman circuit. A tough but iconic course for the athletes who are brave enough to tackle it. The finish line on the Esplanade on Sunday exploded with people and an electric atmosphere to welcome every single athlete across the line. It was a day to remember for sure. Congratulations to everyone who tamed the dragon and crossed that finish line. Special shout out to our chief race referee Paul Lester, who after over 2 decades in the job retired from his post on Sunday. An emotional weekend for us, saying goodbye to someone who has been part of the fabric of Ironman in the UK for just so long. A fair and kind man who J. Luke dubbed the Dream Crusher, but who really was a dear part of our Ironman family. And I know I will miss him as part of our close-knit team, but I do look forward to seeing him race a few events in the UK and, of course, to calling him across a finish line at some stage. It's a quick turnaround at home in Galway as I leave for the Women's Ironman World Championship in Kona next Thursday and have a busy build-up to race day on the Big Island. Having seen firsthand and up close the incredible and record-setting racing by the newly crowned 2025 Ironman World Champion Casper Stornes in Nice, I am overly excited to watch the women's race unfold in Kona. The performances on the day by those on and off the podium in Nice were simply superb. The Norwegian trio of Casper, Gustaf and Christian really did pull off a masterclass in pacing and racing on the day. The resilience shown by so many athletes who towed the line on the beach on race day, displaying incredible grit and determination to get to the finish line, was truly inspiring. From the professional athletes right through to the very last age group athlete across the line, conquering the Nice World Championship course really was a test of limits. Congratulations to all the athletes who made it across the line, with a special shout out to the Irish crew that I met along the way. I was very proud to see the Irish flag on display across the week, and in particular on the finish line when our athletes crossed the line on the Promenade des Anglais. There were plenty of celebrations on Monday night in Man Nolan's Irish pub in the old town of Nice. As part of the build-up to race day in Nice, I had the pleasure of interviewing this year's athlete ambassadors, who I can tell you blew me away with their real-life stories on what it took to get to the start line of the Ironman World Championship in Nice. From Luke Ambler, who was last month's Try Talking Sport podcast guest, racing Mission Possible for the charity he and his mother-in-law set up, Andy's Man Club. He set out to race all Ironman events in the UK with his buddy Johnny Mason, swapping out Ironman 70.3 Weymouth with the opportunity to race at the Ironman World Championship, all the while raising awareness and support of men's mental health. To legacy athlete Aaron Fleming from New Zealand, who had double lung surgery a number of years ago and was told he'd never be able to exert himself. To Frédéric Lehoulier, whose sudden death of his son saw him use Ironman as medicine to cope with his loss. To father and son duo Travis and Braden McKenzie from Australia, who made a pact to do an Ironman together after they had both been injured by an out-of-control van whilst out cycling in 2019. Their sheer determination and courage to be on the start line in Nice and share their stories was very special. You can check out the full interview on the Ironman YouTube channel or go to the link in bio on my Instagram account at Try Talking Sport for quick access to the link. With an incredible start list announced for Kona for the women's race, it's undoubtedly going to be another sizzling and spectacular day of racing for our sport. There are 3 IRONMAN World Champions and 3 IRONMAN 70.3 World Champions, 9 out of the top 10 finishers from the 2024 IRONMAN World Championship, including the full podium, and the top 19 ranked athletes in this year's Ironman Pro Series. They are all headed for the IRONMAN World Championship in Hawaii. It is no wonder I am overly excited. Now, a quick note, if you are an Irish athlete living in Ireland or abroad and have qualified for the 2025 Ironman World Championship events in Kona or Marbella and would like to join the Team Ireland WhatsApp group for your race, please do get in touch and I'll add you to the group. In other news, I've managed to keep up a bit of running whilst on my announcing adventures, ticking off my longest run to date this year in Nice with a 10k on the Promenade des Anglais with Paul Kay on the day after I arrived in the French city. And I managed to get a few other shorter runs done in the sun in Nice too. Then I embraced the hills, rain and wild wind of Wales last week in the build up to race day with a 9.5k run on Thursday and a double run day on Friday, 6k in the morning and 5k in the evening. I have to say I was pretty chuffed with myself on getting those runs done. This week, I'll be cramming for Kona, not just with the research and preparation for race week, but also for the swims to the coffee boat and the early morning running on Ali'i Drive. I'll be arriving in Kona on Friday and can't wait to soak up the heat, the vibe and all of the excitement of race week. Kelly, Sarah and the crew from Feisty Triathlon will be publishing multiple podcasts across the week from the Canoe Club in Kona, so be sure to tune in on all podcast platforms and I may even make an appearance if my schedule allows. Finally, shout out to our friends at Nuasan who continue to offer you a 15% discount on their range of products online. Check them out on www.nuasan.com and use the code TTS15 to get your discounted supplies. Now, let's meet this month's guest. Loughlin Campion is an Irish endurance athlete who crossed the finish line of the Ironman World Championship in Nice as the fastest Irish athlete. And whilst that deserves much respect and admiration, his journey to the race start line is truly inspiring and one of resilience, grit and the relentless pursuit of possibility. A lifelong runner inspired by his father's love of athletics, Loughlin's path to sporting success was abruptly interrupted a number of years ago when he was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, a chronic illness that brought daily struggles, physical setbacks and mental health challenges. For a time, his future in sport seemed uncertain as he grappled with fatigue, stress and the impact of a condition that literally turned his life upside down. With the support of family and friends, when Loughlin finally found his way to remission, he began rebuilding his life around new sporting challenges. Triathlon became his focus, providing an opportunity not only to reignite his passion for running, but to push himself further than he ever imagined. His return to competitive sport has been remarkable. He completed IRONMAN Italy last year in 8 hours and 54 minutes, finishing in the top 20 on debut at the distance, earning his slot for the 2025 IRONMAN World Championship in Nice. And whilst race day in Nice tested every ounce of his preparation and resolve, from the technical bike course to nutrition strategies and mishaps, Loughlin embraced and surmounted each challenge, ultimately crossing the finish line in a superb time of 9 hours, 34 minutes and 44 seconds. The performance cemented his status as the fastest Irishman at the Ironman World Championship, a milestone that spoke not only to his athletic ability, but to his perseverance in the face of adversity. His story shines a light on the challenge of living with the chronic illness, the importance of support networks and the power of determination in rewriting what is possible. As he looks towards his new goals, whether improving on his run speed or preparing for future Ironman races, Loughlin's story reminds us that every setback is a setup for a comeback, and that each and every finish line, no matter how big or small the occasion, deserves to be celebrated. Now go grab a cuppa and enjoy the show. Loughlin Campion, welcome to the Triathlon Sport Podcast. The last time I saw you, we were sitting in Manolin's in the Old Town in Nice, enjoying some post-race celebrations at the Ironman World Championship. That was on Monday night. How has the body been since?
Yeah, we were toasting a good weekend, I think, Joanne. Body's coming around now. I think I'm okay. So, yeah, got through it. That's the main thing. just want to get to that finish line. Ironman, I've only done 2, but that's what I've learned. Just get to that finish line. Yeah.
Well, you've certainly done very well doing your second Ironman and your first time at an Ironman World Championship. Do you want me to give the stats or do you want to give the stats?
You go ahead, I suppose.
Okay, so you swam a 54:38, 3 minutes 10 in transition, 1, a 5:24:18 on a bike course that had 2,500 meters of climbing, 3:14 in T2, so no time for the cup of tea on the second transition, and a 3:09:26 run for a total finish time of 9:34:44. Fastest Irish man in Nice, only Irish athlete to go sub 10 hours, 14th in your age group and 113th overall in the race. How does it feel to hear those stats read back to you?
Yes, it feels really good. Yeah, it was definitely the best case scenario for me on the day. I don't think I was going to get near 9:30 and to finish and see 9:34. I was chuffed. I celebrated over the line. It was just a huge relief. I really didn't know how the run would go. Last year, I did IRONMAN Italy where I qualified. I was delighted with my time last year. I did 8:54. I finished in the top 20 overall, but the last 20k of the run, it was just a slow crawl to the finish line. I'd gotten my fueling a bit wrong on the day, just inexperience maybe, and struggling with absorption and things like that. But yeah, I just wanted to get down off that hilly bike course, save something for the run. And I haven't run over 30k this year. That was my longest run since the marathon in Ironman Italy last year. So didn't know what to expect. I was 3:18 last year. I thought if I can get a 3:10, that'd be amazing. And I ran a 3:09. So yeah, even my swim was the best of all 3. I think I was 10th fastest swim in my age group. Can't believe that. Didn't even have a swim skin. Just got in the water and started. Yeah, you just got to keep going, don't you?
Yeah, non-wetsuit swim and everything. And a sub 55 minutes is 54:38 for the swim. Before we talk about the race and the build up and all of that, I want to go back a little bit because we were in touch before you did Ironman Italy. Actually, we were in touch chatting about doing a podcast, but we never got around to it. And then suddenly we're both in Nice and I'm like, oh my God, Loughlin Campion is here. I want to get him on the podcast. But you were a runner before you were a triathlete.
Yeah, runner first. Yeah. Always a runner. I think I had a first place finish in my junior infants class sprint, and it's all been downhill since then. So my dad got me into it. My dad, same name as myself. He's called senior and I'm called junior in the cycling club here in Ashburn. But yeah, he had us all competing in athletics from a young age. And I suppose if your dad is running, maybe you kind of want to follow along and then experience had a bit of success. I knew I was a decent club runner. Like I wasn't the international by any means, but yeah, I always enjoyed it. Kept going into my 20s and kept going, kept racing. Member of Dunboyne AC, great club there. They hosted the National 10K this year. And I was always running and then eventually kind of got more into cycling. I had to stop running for a few years there. My health took a turn for the worse, and then it kind of full circle and got back to triathlon eventually. But I was always interested in triathlon, always enjoyed swimming. Didn't swim as a kid, but I could swim. I'm a bit taller than most people, so I think the long levers help as well.
One of the reasons I got in touch with you about the podcast a while back was because you did put up a post about your health issues. What I wanted to do with this podcast initially was to talk a little bit about how you navigated life with a chronic illness and then also how you balance life in sport with a chronic illness. So will you tell our listeners a little bit about what that illness is and what it meant to your life really to get that diagnosis?
Yeah, so this is back in 2018. I found myself getting kind of sick. My health just kind of deteriorated over a few months and eventually I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in spring 2019. And it was actually, I feel my active lifestyle kind of indicated to me that something was up. Just experienced a lot of diarrhea, went to my GP, they sent me for a colonoscopy. And the consultant in Connolly Hospital, they said, you've massive inflammation in your lower colon, diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis. So a lot of people might have heard of Crohn's disease. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. It's inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD. So yeah, it's a chronic disease. You have it for life. I still have it. It's just my symptoms are now in remission thanks to the medication that I'm on. But it's always there. It's kind of quiet. Like it walks beside you in life almost. It's always there. You always have to consider it. Same way somebody with diabetes would consider their own health, or cystic fibrosis, or any other chronic disease like that. But yeah, I suppose I'd always been very active, and every step in terms of training and building up to a race and trying to perform, and then recovering and rebuilding and getting, starting another training block again. Every step along that process was complicated by the disease. And that first year, running was always something I enjoyed, something to share, something to be proud of. All of a sudden it became this stressful activity that I no longer wanted to do, because if I wanted to go for a run, I couldn't run for 5 minutes without needing to stop, and I'd be running to the bathroom. Even without running, there was times I was going to the bathroom maybe 10, 15, even 20 times a day. And you just know you're going to wake up the next day and it's the same. You're not going to, the doctors are, they give you the medication. It is helping you, but then you might have a good day and I don't know, you only go to the bathroom 5 or 6 times. And then the next day it could be double that. Your relationship with food changes. You end up under fueling. I used to go to work and just eat a packet of crisps at lunch because I didn't want to have any issues while I was in work. I'm a primary school teacher. I remember I was teaching senior infants that year. I just had just about enough energy to get to the end of the day with the kids, and I'd get home and fall asleep. I remember I was swimming with 3D Triathlon at the time, and I just signed up for a swim block, but it started at 7 o'clock in the evening, and I just had no energy at that time. Never mind the stress of being in the middle of the pool if you had, sudden urge to use the bathroom. So very tough experience. So yeah, to think to go from there to the finish line in Nice is incredible for me. And I'm happy to talk about it, because it helps me to talk about it. For years I wouldn't have been able to talk about this year's goal. It was too upsetting. It'll help other people with Crohn's or with colitis. And yeah, it raises awareness about it. There's definitely, this is why people stay quiet about it, because I'd say for me, there was a lot of hopelessness with it. I didn't feel like it was going to improve for years. If you're still experiencing the same symptoms a year after being diagnosed, 2 years, 3 years, even 4 years, that was the situation I was in. I hadn't run in over 3 years, Joanne. So any thought of doing the Dublin Marathon or an Ironman or a triathlon, just forget it. I'd made peace kind of with never doing anything like that, but I was definitely heartbroken over it. Yeah.
It must have been so frustrating, Loughlin.
Yeah, massively. It was I just remember the feeling, it just felt so unfair, I'd just be out driving and you'd see someone out for a run, and even just seeing someone out for a run would almost trigger you. I remember the Tokyo Olympics, I didn't watch a single part of it. Even silly little things like social media, I followed a lot of athletes. I remember I unfollowed anything that was related to sports. I do a bit of photography in my spare time, and I remember the club in Dunboyne, they'd asked me to go take photos at the race, and we hosted a national cross country one year. So I went along and I took photos. And I remember once I'd sent photos back to the club PRO, I said, I'll never do that again. I couldn't stand taking photos of a race that I wanted to be in. Just little simple things like that. It's so silly, but I used to just tell people I was injured. And yeah, I didn't see it improving for ages, and it kind of tricks you. That was unique to my situation. I remember I would Google people, I would say Crohn's athlete or training colitis. And there was, I think there were very few people I could see who were really training and competing. So I came across one Runner's World article of a woman with Crohn's, and fair play to her, she was saying, look, you can do these marathons, but I think she was talking about, not being shy to stop, use the portaloos if you need to, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm all about performance. That's just the way I've always been. I say okay, that's not the way I want to run a marathon. So, I'd rather not do it. That's just me personally. But there you go. Yeah, got through Nice. Like you always hear about people in Ironmans with gut issues. I had zero issues on Sunday, and I'm the one with a chronic condition.
I imagine that your mental health would suffer as well, Loughlin. You mentioned there, you're so frustrated, you turn off sport, you stop following people, that your outlet then for your endorphins is gone because you're an active person who wants to have an active lifestyle. But if you can't go outside the door without being worried about having to go to the loo, it must affect your mental well-being as well.
Yeah, it had a huge effect on my mental well-being. There was definitely a period there where I probably should have been speaking to a psychologist in hindsight, and I wasn't. I kind of thought, well, nobody can help me with this. Like this is the way it is now, and that's just my lifestyle. And I almost wished I didn't have such an active lifestyle before diagnosis, because I was so upset over not being able to run. And I thought, how did I let myself be so focused on one thing, the singular focus? How did I let myself be so upset over not being able to do this? I was thinking, I don't know, if I was a musician or something, I could still play a piano, but this is the one chronic disease that really complicated, training and racing. And I was so annoyed at myself that it was almost like it's crazy where the mind goes. Like I was almost half blaming myself for, being, so, I don't know, I suppose emotionally tied, and like I'd created this circle around running, having the routine of going out for a run and the endorphin hits of it and looking forward to events. And I almost wished I'd done like I'd never done a marathon. The only marathon I've done now is in those 2 Ironmans. I've never done a standalone marathon. And I remember thinking, why didn't I just do a marathon when I was like 24, 25? Like I was running really well at those ages, and I could have just signed up for the Dublin Marathon and just done it. I would have loved to have done it. I remember the year I was diagnosed, I went in and 2 of my close friends were doing their first marathon and just cheering them on, and obviously delighted they both had a great day. But I just remember I was absolutely gutted. I was so low that day. I really struggled that day because it was the first time since being diagnosed being in a marathon, and I was watching everyone run. I was thinking, I'm never going to get to run this marathon. And even as a kid, like my dad was in civil service Harriers with like Jim Ockley, the race director, close friend of his. So Dad would always drive one of the cars for the Dublin Marathon. And even when I was in school, I'd be in the back seat. And, it was a bit of fun. October midterm, I put my hand up back in school on the Monday. What did you get up to? And I was like, when I was in a Dublin Marathon with my dad, and you're thinking when you're 9 years old and, they're starting, it was all analog then. So they had to physically start the seat go clock that was on the roof of the car. And then they'd bang the roof of the car and say, go, 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 and I think the race started on Nassau Street then. But I was always thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to run, I'm going to do this race, and I'm going to do this race someday, just like my dad did, and you just don't think that chronic disease is going to get in your way. But yeah, there you go. But I'll have to run it some year.
You will. Well, yeah. You've run 2 very good marathons on the back of a 3.8k swim and 180k bike. So no fear now of you not getting it done. You mentioned, Loughlin, that you're in remission. So what does that actually mean?
Yeah, in remission. I've been in remission for about 3 or 4 years now, thankfully. It just means that the symptoms I struggled with years ago with urgency and needing to run to the bathroom constantly are non-existent, basically. They're not there anymore. So I still have ulcerative colitis. There's no cure for it. You have it for life. But at the moment, thanks to the medication I'm on, I've 0 symptoms. It does still affect me in ways that I'm almost still discovering, but like I have to watch what I eat and things like that. If I get sick, more than likely it will take me more time to get over the illness. But yeah, in terms of racing and training, and yeah, I'm able to train and race, thankfully. But yeah, once I kind of reached remission, like I immediately gained I just put on a load of weight, put on more muscle. I'd actually loaned my power meter, like any cyclist listening to this. Power meter is not the kind of thing you just loan out for a few months, but I was in hospital a lot in 2020. And then I got put on some infusion therapy is what sorted it for me. So basically stronger medication. And yeah, that winter, one of my friends was thinking of getting a power meter, and I just said, "Oh, here, take mine." No rush in getting them back to me, because I thought I'm not going to be able to cycle again. And the same way, everything's slow with chronic disease. You're maybe slow to get diagnosed and slow to recover. So it took me 9 months, close to a year of this infusion therapy for the symptoms to go away. And at that stage, I had actually started a bit of bike racing, so I couldn't run, but that's what started me cycling. So would I have started bike racing were it not for ulcerative colitis? Maybe not. So it's funny how things work out, but I was finishing races extremely lightheaded. I was under fueling before races. Looking back, I shouldn't have been racing really as an 84, as an 83. But the thing is, I was still actually doing okay. You know, I was almost getting a few results, but I remember morning of one race out in Castlebar, like I'd driven there the day before, long drive, stayed over in a B&B, got up for the race. And I remember whatever I ate the night before, I wasn't sure I was going to make the start line, because my stomach was in knots. And I remember you were talking about my mental health. I remember my mentality going to the start of that race line. You know, everyone is doing their warm up, pinning on their numbers. In my head, I was thinking, why have you put yourself in this situation? Why have you driven all the way to the west of Ireland to do a bike race when clearly your health is not good? And like, who do you think you are? You know, there's this voice there saying, just give up. What? Are you crazy? And then I think I finished 8. You know, I got a top 10. And then, so you have the physical ability where people are saying, geez, you're strong, you're going really well. Nobody had any idea I was dealing with this. Deep down, I knew I'm going to have to stop. But anyway, I loaned this friend the power meter. I got it back around the time my health had improved. And I remember thinking, this is not calibrated properly. This guy has dropped this power meter. It banged it against the wall or something, because the power was all up. I was 30 or 40 watts up from what it was the year before. And what it was is that I had recovered. And it took me then another further year to believe that I had recovered, to believe that I was in remission. So like, I didn't touch any green veg or anything like that. All foods that are supposed to be good for you were detrimental to me, because, you know, good fibrous foods that are full of fiber, the reason they're good is because they sit in your system and take longer to break down, so your body can absorb more and more nutrients from them. But if you put foods like that, like vegetables and things like that, into a system that's inflamed, you just immediately want to get rid of it. So I had a very bland beige diet, a lot of white bread, a lot of just really plain foods. With that, I remember I had like breakouts on my skin that I wouldn't have had before. I remember just eating a lot of processed foods. I remember I got a filling that year at my dentist. Haven't had a filling since. You know, like just little things like that just would really frustrate you. And I'd say, this is all because of that disease, you know. And if I could just, in the back of my head is this voice, like, if you could just get over this, I'm going to run a marathon, I'm going to do an Ironman, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So yeah, that's the resolve you need on the last lap of a Ironman marathon, running out to Nice airport, you know, and you're 9 hours deep into an endurance event. So yeah, it's an Ironman is hard. It's not as difficult as what I went through there for years, you know.
That's for sure, yeah. Rather than going all the way back to the running days, talk to me about the build for Italy and why you decided Ironman actually. Why did you decide triathlon was the sport that was going to be for you when you were feeling well enough to get back to sport?
Yeah, good question. I suppose, well, when I recovered and I kind of got into remission, I was A2 in cycling. And I remember I went up from A3 to A2 over one weekend, and I was thinking, okay, the health's improved here. And had a good summer racing. That was summer 2021. Got COVID at the end of that summer and finished the season there. And then I thought the Ross was starting back the following year after it had been on a break for a few years. And I thought, okay, I think I might be okay. But equally, I was heading into that winter thinking maybe I'm not okay. Maybe this is just a good 6 months I'm having. Could be back in hospital next year. I don't know. But I said, I'm probably closer to upgrading to A1 and riding the Ross than I am to running like the times I was years ago. So I just kept with the cycling that winter. And I said to myself, if I can ride the Ross and do the nationals in June, I'd promise myself I'd do a few triathlons later that summer. It just made sense. And that's exactly what I did. I just felt triathlon was a bit closer to me, that I could get onto the run after hopefully having a good bike split and just maybe have a little bit more success, because obviously the level in running is so high and you can't, half-ass it. You kind of have to do it properly. So triathlon was the plan. And even years ago, I knew people doing Ironman. I knew guys who would qualify for Kona, and always in the back. Now, equally, like in my early 20s, I thought that's mad. Like it's so long. But eventually you reach a point where you'd say, I'd love to do something like that. Yeah.
So then IRONMAN Italy was the target.
Yeah. Initially it was Ironman Switzerland because a cousin of mine lives there and I'd never been to Switzerland. And I think Ironman are very good at their, their media, and the course in Switzerland looks spectacular. But I just had a back injury a few weeks before. So I deferred to Italy and didn't know how popular Ironman Italy is. But I certainly, when I racked my bike in transition, I saw how busy it was. Huge race. So went over there. I remember Storm Boris was kind of finishing up that week. It was torrential rain when we got there. The trains from Bologna airport weren't fully running, but got there eventually. And on the day, probably had a few too many pastries. I had breakfast thinking, this is fine. I've a long day ahead and maybe a bit of nerves, but just got through the swim. Okay. I swam 57 minutes, bikes 4:29. And I was just having a great day despite maybe a few bad patches on the bike, just with fueling. I just felt a little bit nauseous, but maybe that's to be expected. I hadn't done that effort before. And I'd gotten up to 8th position overall and probably got a bit excited at the start of the run. And I was thinking, right, I'll just run a 3-hour marathon here. No big deal. And I'll do a really fast time. And after 20K, I knew that wasn't happening. I think I was running 6-minute Ks by the end, but I ran at 3:18 the hard way and finished. And I was just so relieved to see 8:54. I couldn't believe I went under 9 hours in the first one. So
unreal.
Yeah.
When you think back to the days where you thought you'd never run a marathon, so you're in the depths of the chronic illness, the depths of the frustration of not being able to do anything, looking at the Dublin Marathon and going, I'm never going to be able to do this. What was it like going down the finish line of Ironman Italy?
Yeah, it was incredible. That was the first time I let myself be excited, because I didn't know, was I going to pull up with cramp or were my legs going to fail me? My quads were cramping for over the last hour of the race, but I didn't stop once. I just kept going. I just said, I have to get to that line. I knew so many people were tracking me, and I knew my dad was waiting for me at the line. He's a great supporter. He's always kept me going through all this. But I mean, after it, I was just thinking, I can run so much better than that, But do you know what it is? That's just, it's not that I'm being hypercritical. Looking back, it's probably the performance I deserved. But I think when I've registered for the Dublin Marathon twice in the last couple of years since being in remission. So that shows my intention. But obviously a few niggles here and there have held me up. But so even Ironman, I was thinking, I'm not really ready for an Ironman, but I know I can do it, So I just wanted to do it, because who's ready really for an Ironman? Like, it's crazy really. Like, apart from the professionals who race it, like they're doing a 70.3. But that's why Nice, honest to God, I didn't know, was I going to have a very tough day there? Or like, I think there's a big swing that can go with your performance. Like, there really is no guarantees. I mean, there's some very good runners there who can have a very tough day. You see that with the pros as well. And yeah, I just knew Italy, the experience with Italy helped me with Nice because it just taught me to back off. Nice taught me about fueling and pacing. And for once I backed off on the bike, and I think that's why I was able to run.
It probably paid off a little bit backing off on the bike. But we'll come to that. We'll come to that. I want to talk about Nice in a second. You've actually had some really good results this year so far. You were 8th in Tyrone, 5th at top of the Moor, and 2nd in the Last Sheep. So you really were, getting ready for Nice, picking all of those tough Irish races.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for a bit of competition. I just want to go where the best guys are. So yeah, I'm always kind of thereabouts. I don't seem to be topping any podiums, but I'm always nearby.
Well, first to your age group isn't bad either when you think about it.
True.
Second in Lost Sheep is very good. But before you got to Nice, you also had a stag or a wedding, or there was some crazy preparations going on.
Yeah, I was a few kind of up and down weeks. The lead up to Nice, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Kind of took the focus off Nice, but yeah, Ryan, one of my best friends, Ryan, was getting married to his bride Anna in Spain the weekend before the Ironman in Nice, and I was on his stag do in Galway City 2 weeks before that. So yeah, listen, you pack your runners and you've every intention of going out, but look, you got to enjoy these events as well. And yeah, there was, I made sure I enjoyed those weekends. I'll put it that way.
You weren't being a hermit in the weekend.
I wasn't. I was the opposite of a hermit. Definitely not. No. No, and even in a way, I think like Nice was definitely hanging over me a little bit this year. As you can't defer a World Championship race, and I just really wanted to give a good account of myself on the day. I really didn't want to be struggling like I did in IRONMAN Italy last year on the run. And at the same time, in the few weeks that led up to it, one of my best friends is getting married. I said, I have to enjoy this, and I think it was good. It took the pressure off me, and I knew there's so many talented athletes there in Nice, and I just said, okay, they can have it today. I'm going to shoot for a decent result,
Decent?
Yeah.
Sorry, do you want me to remind you of the time you did in Nice?
No, you're okay.
I mean, it was super fast, and I called you across the finish line. And I think I remember saying,
like, going crazy, yeah.
First Irish man across the line. You see the Irish flag come up on the screen in front of us, and I'm just like, I've been here since the very first athlete crossed the finish line. I think Loughlin is the first Irishman across the line, and so you automatically go to say it, and then you're second guessing yourself afterwards. But it was very cool to call you across the line in advance of race day. Did you embrace everything that happened with the World Championship spectacle that is a World Championship, like Parade of Nations, the swim in the bay, everything? Did you do everything?
No, I didn't actually. Not that I didn't want to, but I suppose there's, I went to like a few talks or whatever at the expo, or I checked out some stands, but just with the bike course being so technical, I really wanted to check out the final descent. My bike didn't arrive on the flight from Dublin, and I arrived late to the hotel on Wednesday night. So then Thursday, was it Thursday or Wednesday? Anyway, I went out and did basically 4 hours on the bike because I wanted to check out the bike course. So that's just me being a weirdo. I really like to know the bike course and where I need to brake and where I don't need to brake. So I missed the Parade of Nations because I was doing that. So yeah, I would have liked to have done all that. I was at that 70.3 World in Taupo last year, and I did the Parade of Nations. Very impressed with the welcoming we got from the locals. But when I saw the profile and the twists, I said, right, I don't want to be coming off the bike here. I want to know this descent. And I said, at least I can check that out. So that was that. But yeah, in terms of the atmosphere in Nice, I definitely savoured it and made the most of it. And I wasn't nervous at all. Once we got in the water, it was nice and warm. I was ready to go. I was excited. I was swimming along with kayaks beside me. I'm looking up at the helicopter above us, tracking the pros. I was just thinking, this is brilliant. I was just, what's there to be nervous about? I mean, even on that, even if this is for any listeners, like it's not that I don't get nervous before races. In fact, that year I went back to triathlon, I was nervous before every single race because I hadn't done any swimming. So if you're unfamiliar with it, you're going to be nervous. But now I feel that nervous energy coming, and I think I'm good at shutting it down because I'm just not going to let that spoil the experience for me. And even I always think, I have these simple cues that I use when I'm racing. And even one of them is, I just think back to when I was in hospital. I was thinking, you would have killed for this opportunity. So, don't spoil it now by trying to save every second by sprinting through transition. Just take your time and just relax, just try to give yourself a few seconds to slip into your pedals properly and get going, and don't knock off your bottle that's behind your saddle. Just simple things like that, and just realizing that it's a long race, and just relaxing and looking for the Irish flags, people who are cheering you on, and just little things like that I think helps me just stay relaxed. You can talk about it afterwards,
Yeah. So 3.8K non-wetsuit swim, no fear, enjoyed it. I heard it was a little bit bouncy out towards the far end of the Bada Aj, out the pointy part of the M on the swim course.
Yeah, it definitely was. There was a bit of traffic, like just people probably lining up the front who maybe aren't strongest swimmers. I wasn't sure how it would go, but I ended up swimming up and through the wave that was in front of us, past a few of those swimmers as well. So that was nice. But yeah, I had a great swim. I didn't even have a swim skin on. I just swam in my tri-suit. So I was surprised when I saw 54 on it. And, I know there's always slight differences in different courses and different conditions. So I always look to where I finished in my age group or relative to the others. So I think I was 90th fastest swim the entire race. So maybe that was going to Australia and getting in with a good swim group in Sydney full of channel swimmers who, some of them swim like up to 50K a week as they're coming into their main event. It's crazy. So I've just been trying to keep up with them,
So basically what you're telling me is that you were a pro athlete for 6 months in Australia.
No, not at all. No. Well, I was teaching over there as well.
Yeah, but the lifestyle is completely different. You can be a pro athlete and a full-time teacher in Australia, and live the lifestyle.
They've more pools. That's what it is, Joanna.
Yeah, more pools and better weather.
That's true.
And then onto the bike course. So it was 2,500 meters of elevation through the Alpe Maritime, twisty, turny descents, some big long climbs. Talk to me about the course. Did you enjoy the bike?
Yeah, I did. I really did. I have a bad habit of overbiking. And probably the only 2 triathlons I've done where I've held back are Italy and IRONMAN Nice, because I just have to, because there's a marathon coming, so you just can't bluff it. I think you have to play your card in triathlon as well. Like if you're a strong swimmer, obviously why would you hold back? And bike is probably my best discipline, so I don't hold back normally when I'm on the bike leg. But I just knew there were so many Uber bikers there, and I knew a lot of them would be able to run 3 hours off the bike or even under. And I just knew I wasn't going to do that. So in a way, it was I just was really relaxed because I knew I was in a good group of bikers on the first climb. And yeah, the motor marshals were watching us like hawks. And I wasn't getting ahead of these guys. They were all cycling really, really well. And yeah, it was just the descents. They kept pedaling the descents. I really didn't want to pedal on the downhill. So I was like, so you should just back off a little bit. But so I was losing them a little bit on the downhills, but I just was happy enough to hold back. I think that saved me to run. I lost some nutrition going over the speed bumps in the first 15K. So that wasn't ideal, but I just made sure I got something at every aid station. And yeah, so that was in contrast to last year in IRONMAN Italy. I was almost forcing myself to fuel, but I just did not feel well. Whereas this year, all the fuel was going in, no problem. It was just no issues. So, and it was spectacular. Like, there's so many people cheering us on. And yeah, you're out there for a long time, but it doesn't feel like 5.5 hours. I think I was 5:24. Yeah. So it was good bike split. Yeah. I definitely left, I don't know, maybe a few minutes out on course, but that's fine, it is what it is.
It is when you look at your run course split then.
Yeah, well, like I said, last year, I think like the first 5K of the Ironman I did last year, I did it in just outside 20 minutes. I don't know what I was doing. I was,
Going too fast.
Yeah, a little bit too fast. Yeah, I was just there weren't that many people on the course and everybody's cheering you on. But I think my first, again, Ironman Italy, where I qualified last year, the first half marathon, I think I did it at maybe 4:20 per K. And then the second half was 5:10 or 5:15 per K pace. And I'd say the last 5K was 30 minutes or so, or close to it. And I was just absolutely crawling. So in Nice, I just didn't want that experience. And the one thing you notice immediately at the World Championships is how good everyone is. And everyone was running really well. Everyone was running 4-minute Ks or close to it out of T2. And I just knew I couldn't afford to do that, even with a tailwind out to Nice airport. So for those that don't know, we had to run out to the airport and back 4 times. So 4 10Ks. And yeah, I just had to really keep an eye on the pace. And then the first lap felt great as a result. You know, it just shows you pacing yourself. It's underrated. So I'm definitely going to be pacing myself again at the next event I do. It's almost like that's my athletic background. I just, you know, years ago I wouldn't race with a watch at all. You just go. But that's the other thing people don't understand about Ironman is you don't have people to run with. You're on your own. So you have to set your own rhythm. You can easily get that wrong. You know, there's DJs playing Lose Yourself, Eminem, and you're trying you can't afford to get excited. You can't afford to get wrapped up in all of that. And then you need the aid stations, and the aid stations do kill your rhythm, but you need them. So you have to kill your own rhythm. And that's just the way it is. Ironman marathon is not for the faint-hearted, but I think I got deep into the marathon. I only slowed a little bit on last lap. I slowed to maybe running like 4:20 Ks, 4:25s, 4:30s. And then I slowed maybe to 4:40 per K on the last 10K. So I think my slowest K was 4:45. So definitely didn't capitulate or anything like that. And yeah, I couldn't have, I mean, two athletes in my age who passed me in like last 400 meters and they beat me by, you know, less than 10 seconds, but it is what it is. That's the World Championships. I think if I had been 10 minutes slower, I would have been a further 40 places back in amongst the age groupers. So yeah, 113. I think if you take out the pros, I think 40 pros finished. So I was 73rd age grouper and yeah, 14th in my age group. And I looked at a few of the guys I qualified with last year and I actually beat a few of them. They beat me in Italy with faster times. You know, there was a guy who ran under 3 hours last year in Italy. I think he just had a tougher day on Sunday and he ran, I don't know, maybe a 3:16 or something. So that's just the way it is. And I'm still learning the event, but you can have a really good day and you can have a really tough day. So that's why it was honestly 9:34. I couldn't have asked for better. Like I thought I could be 10:34. I didn't know what to expect. Yeah. So that run, I'd almost say like I didn't deserve to run 3:09, but I just aced it in the first half. Like grit my teeth on the last lap. Yeah.
And then coming down the finish line, what was that like?
That was brilliant. I'm not normally one to celebrate or like go crazy like that, but it was just, honestly, it was just the relief of getting through it and doing myself justice. I didn't even know the time at that stage, but I just knew I'd had a good run and that's all I wanted. I knew the swim and the bike would be what they were. I expected to swim like 65 when I saw the non-wetsuit and here's me with no swim skin. So I saw 54. I was like, okay. And then I knew I was losing time on the bike to some of the stronger guys, but that's fine. And then, yeah, the run, I just knew I was fairly even for the whole thing. So just so happy, so proud. And yeah, just to kind of nail it on the biggest stage. You know, there's so many top triathletes now in Ireland. Like it was my turn this year maybe to be the top Irish finisher, but like there's a few athletes there in Ireland that were they there in Nice, they would have been, you know, putting it up to me. But yeah, I'm very happy to cross the line as the first Irish finisher, definitely.
And is there a standout moment from the day that will last with you forever?
Honestly, it's even being in the water just before the swim started and the countdown and just being really relaxed. And yeah, just being ready to go and just thinking, embrace it. It was the same in Taupo last year. I just remember, just enjoy this, just look out on the lake and just, savor this and almost try to take a mental picture of all this. And I think our age group was really relaxed, 35 to 39. There was 288 of us, and they said 30 seconds to go, and everyone just started kind of almost chanting and going, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, ooh." Just immediately burst out laughing because everyone was just buzzing,
Yeah.
It was like we were back in school, and we were splashing and just ready to go. And then again, 30 seconds later, we're just windmilling arms and we're almost kind of punching and elbowing each other. But sure, we're well used to it, that's what you get.
And then just in terms of fueling on the day, Loughlin, as well, like how did you manage the fuel? Do you still have to restrict on certain foods and things like that in the build up to it that would be different to what somebody who doesn't have colitis does?
I suppose, well, actually, my diet would probably be, just on race week, you hear a lot of nutritionists talking about cutting back on fiber, even just to save on just kind of having a lighter stomach the week of the race. And that's kind of what I rely on. I think the day before the race, I think it was octopus and rice, and I got an extra side of rice the night before the race. And
Octopus.
yeah, octopus. So like, as in, it's just whatever was at the restaurant in Nice. I was like, all right, that looks good. Yeah, I'll have a bit of that. But let me see. No, there's nothing really. I think just the gels at the aid station saved me. Like I just took as many as I could and tried to take caffeine gels at the right time. And I don't know, I got it right at sea, but yeah, I was in a bit of a panic early on when I lost the bottle full of all of my nutritions. There's like 150 grams of carbs in it. And then I just said, relax, you'll get it back at the aid stations. And then I had like my salt tablets. I had kind of some chews on the bike as well. And I had some bars. I lost, I think, 200 grams of carbs in terms of like solids. But yeah, so I just had gels, which is, that was a learning curve for me. But
That would
yeah, it was
turn
okay.
anybody's stomach.
I know. If you told me the night before the race, you're not going to have any, you're just going to have gels for the whole event, I was like, no, thanks. I need to eat something real. But there you go. I got through it on just gels. I can't believe it, really.
When you look back at the journey you've been on, from when you started having the symptoms to crossing the finish line in Nice, so we're talking like how many years of a journey have we?
Maybe 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
Yeah. When you look back at everything that you've achieved since then and how you've come through it, what are you most proud of?
Just with keeping going in general, just even the theme of, Ironman Nice, they had a theme of resilience, and you go to the Ironman village and they have the wall that everyone writes their reason for racing. And you just see so many people have been through similar experiences. Like, my story is not unique. There's so many people who've been through, really tough life experiences. And, it is kind of redemption we're seeking maybe with Ironman. It sounds silly, like none of us are going to the Olympics. So maybe that is our kind of expression of saying like, we're still here, and we're still pushing, we're still fighting. And, maybe me personally, I'm not so good at buying into all that stuff, but, maybe running up that finish line, I allowed myself kind of lean into that and say, yeah, do you know what? This is pretty special and just be proud of this. And I never really believed, like when I was in the depths of it, my illness years ago, I never really believed I was going to recover, but maybe somewhere I did. And yeah, I just feel really lucky. I mean, there's so many people out there struggling with Crohn's and colitis. And, I feel like my story was almost like a steep decline initially and a steep recovery looking back, but it still took a good few years. But I just feel extremely lucky. Yeah. And I never thought I'd be racing at this level at all. So like, it's just a bonus. I really don't again, if I lose a bottle of my nutrition, it's not a big deal. Like or if I'm a little bit slower, like you always hear these people doing these post-mortems after races. And I've had disappointing races myself over the years, but I don't know. When I finish, I'm like, okay, I'll take a disappointing race over no race, you know?
With the struggles that you've had with your health. So it's all about perspective really, isn't it?
Yeah, massive. I'm almost grateful for that. If I'm grateful for one thing, it's just, yeah, having that perspective. I'm always extremely relaxed at any race I go to. I don't think I was like that years ago when I was doing cross country, track races. You know, you'd be measuring your performance against your peers and every second mattered. But yeah, I mean, triathlon, it's not a big deal really. You know, it's just the IRONMAN World Championships.
Just said so casually. Speaking of the Ironman World Championship and the journey to that start line and that finish line, who has been your biggest inspiration?
In terms of,
In general, in life, who inspires you every day to go and live your best life?
oh God, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if I've an answer to that question, Joanne.
You mentioned your dad quite a lot.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, my dad definitely inspires me. It probably just goes without saying. I don't think I'd be, you know, still competing were it not for his support. And equally, I think he just made it kind of normal for us. You know, he'd go for a run as when we were kids. Myself, and my brother would go and kick a ball or whatever with him, you know, and he'd run around and we'd entertain ourselves for an hour and then he'd come back. So it just seemed normal, and he's the same name as me. So I used to get loads of shouts from his friends when I was racing, you know, so they'd all know my name because, you know, Irish men aren't so good at remembering names. So it's a bit easier when it's the same name. I just embraced the circle I was in. I said, I like this. I don't see why I would quit. I think I'm nearly glad I wasn't a better runner as a junior, because I think, you know, you see a lot of people competing internationally as juniors or under 23s, and then, you know, maybe they've had enough of it because they feel they know how hard they have to work, and they're like, okay, well, I'm not going to continue. But I always felt I'm just staying in touch with this for the lifestyle. It was just the outdoors for me. I just like out into nature. And yeah, like if it weren't for my dad, I wouldn't have that at all. So look, I mean, it's definitely an addiction. It's definitely like a hyper fixation. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. It's a good addiction, you know?
So what's the next step in the addiction? Where are you going next, or what's the plan?
Good question. I have no idea. Honestly, I hadn't looked beyond Sunday. And up until the run, I was thinking, if I have another run like Ironman Italy, that's the last one. I am done. But honestly, after running a 309, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can chip off another 10 minutes there. I get on a faster course maybe and put out a similar bike split that I did in Italy and go a bit quicker again. But I want to just focus on my running, I think, over the next few months. And that's still very much my weak link. And now that I've ticked a lot of boxes in terms of what I want to do after, you know, getting on top of my health again, yeah, I could just focus on my running and try to get a bit faster, not as fast as, you know, well, we'll see. See how fast I can go, yeah, across all distances. And if I can bring that back to triathlon, great. But full distance is no joke. So I'm not running back to register for another one anytime soon, but it definitely won't be my last one.
Are you running back to book flights to Australia for another 6 months as a pro athlete and teacher?
We'll see, possibly, yeah. The lifestyle there is great, and there's even so many friends from Australia were tracking me. So very grateful for that support and that network. And yeah, I still need to figure out how to get into the water quickly and dive over waves or under waves. And yeah, I need to get that run going a bit better. So we'll see. Yeah. I think in all seriousness, like that period where I was unwell, that was age 28 to 32. And it was just, I felt like I just lost those years. And like, even now, I'm so happy I'm in remission, but there is kind of still a bitterness there about those years where I was unwell. And I understand why people with chronic disease don't talk about it, or why there are statistics about, you know, struggles with their mental health. But I still feel, you know, I'm a teacher, and when I finished Ironman Italy, a colleague of mine last year was really interested in how I did, and I brought my medal into school to show the kids, and she was asking me all about it. She was taking photos of the medal, and she was saying, you know, run me through distances again. And she was saying, and So, and she didn't know about my history with my health or anything, but we ended up talking about that. And I remember she kept saying the same thing. She's like, oh, there's always a reason. She's like, there's always a reason. And then she kept saying, and Loughlin, you've a very good reason. She kept saying, don't forget that. You've a very good reason to keep going. So I kind of said to myself, right, all those years where I couldn't do all this. So if I go back to Australia and if I keep trying to shave time off, that performance, it's never too late. You're never too old. It's never too late. Just, no one's keeping check on what other people are doing. So I'm on my own timeline, pause for a few years there. Really frustrating, but I think I deserve to kind of just see where this takes me for the next while. And yeah, I know a lot of people do full distance triathlons, and then it can almost, if it doesn't go well, it's a shame, but they can almost say, all right, that's me done. And they just, they almost leave the sport entirely, which is a shame. But no, unfortunately for me, I had a decent run on Sunday, so I'm still hooked.
You're not going anywhere, when hopefully at some point I will get to call you down another finish line somewhere. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Enjoy the rest of the post-race recovery, whatever that might entail, and any post-race celebrations, and watch this space. Let's see where you end up for the next race.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joanne.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. If you would like to hear more great episodes of the podcast, be sure to check them out on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow all of our activities and podcasts on Facebook, X, LinkedIn and Instagram. If you have any feedback or guest suggestions, please email me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, thanks for listening. Stay safe, keep smiling, and remember to look for fun and adventure in every day.